I stood in the boardroom, frozen. My brother Evan pointed his finger at me like a criminal. Leo leaked our confidential deals to competitors, he announced to the senior staff. We have proof. The HR representative slid a termination letter across the table. My hands shook as I picked it up. Fired. After 3 years building this company alongside my own brother. The faces around the table avoided my eyes. I had given everything to Carter and Rowe. 60-hour weeks. Missed family dinners. I turned down better offers because I believed in what we were building together. Security will escort you out, the HR rep said coldly. I grabbed my phone and wallet, leaving everything else. As I walked toward the door, Evan leaned close to my ear. You should have stayed out of my way. The security guard waited by the elevator. I pressed the button with trembling fingers, my mind racing. What deals? What proof? I had never leaked anything. But as the elevator doors closed, I realized something terrifying. Evan planned this. My apartment felt like a tomb. I sat on my couch, staring at the termination letter. Unpaid bills covered my coffee table. Rent was due next week. My savings had maybe 2 months left. I couldn't call our parents. Evan was their golden child, the successful entrepreneur. They would never believe me over him. My phone buzzed with a voicemail. Marissa Grace, Evan's business partner. I almost deleted it, but something made me listen. Leo, it's Marissa. I warned him this would blow up. I told Evan that framing you was wrong, but he wouldn't listen. He said you were getting too close to finding out about. Her voice cut off suddenly. I replayed the message 3 times. Getting too close to what? Then I heard it. In the background, someone else was talking. A man's voice, barely audible. Leo knows about Blue Ash. Blue Ash? I had never heard that name before. But apparently, I was supposed to know about it. I grabbed my laptop and started searching. The office building was dark except for security lights. I knew the night guard's routine from years of late shifts. At 2 a.m., he made rounds on upper floors. That gave me 20 minutes. My key card still worked. I slipped into my old office, heart pounding. The desk had been cleared out, but I remembered the bottom drawer. It always stuck. Tonight, it was locked. I found a paperclip and worked at the mechanism. My dad taught me to pick locks when I was 12. Useful skill, he'd said. The drawer opened with a soft click. Inside was a single flash drive labeled Blue Ash Project, in Evan's handwriting. My mouth went dry. I grabbed the drive and headed for the door, but footsteps echoed in the hallway. The night guard was early. I made it to the stairwell just as his flashlight swept across my office window. At my car, I plugged the drive into my laptop. Bank transfers filled the screen. Millions of dollars flowing to overseas accounts. I spent the morning researching the Blue Ash accounts. The trail led to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. The owner was listed as Daniel Voss. That name sounded familiar. 2 years ago, Evan came home drunk after a business dinner, rambling about investors and silent partners. He mentioned someone named Voss who could make problems disappear. I googled Daniel Voss and nearly dropped my laptop. Financial fraud. Money laundering. Tax evasion. The guy was a career criminal who specialized in helping companies hide illegal profits. But according to every news article, Daniel Voss died in a car accident 2 years ago. The same week Evan started acting strange about company finances. Dead men don't run shell companies. Someone was using Voss's identity, and my brother was sending millions to whoever it was. I printed everything and stuffed it into a folder. This wasn't just about my job anymore. Evan was involved in something that could destroy innocent people. But I needed more proof before exposing him. I called Marissa from a coffee shop across town. She agreed to meet at a small restaurant where we used to grab lunch. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hands shaking as she stirred her coffee. I slid a printout across the table showing one blue ash transfer. "You know about this," I said. Marissa stared at the paper and went pale. "Leo, you need to stop digging. If Evan finds out you know about blue ash, he'll ruin you twice." What happened in the boardroom was just the beginning. "Then help me," I said. "We can stop this together." She shook her head. "You don't understand. There are other people involved. Dangerous people. They told him to get rid of anyone who might figure out the money trail. That's why he fired me. He needed a scapegoat. Someone to blame if authorities ever started asking questions." She stood up quickly. "Forget about blue ash. Move far away and start over." She left money on the table and hurried out. That night, I found my apartment door slightly open. The blue ash flash drive was gone. Frank Morgan answered on the first ring. We'd been roommates in college, and he was now a criminal defense attorney. I needed someone I could trust completely. I explained everything. The firing, blue ash, the missing drive. Frank listened without interrupting. "This is serious stuff," he said finally. "Corporate fraud, money laundering. If you're right about your brother, we're talking federal charges. But I need to ask you something." "Anything. Are you prepared to burn every bridge? Because once we start this fight, there's no going back. Your brother will be in prison. Your family will never forgive you." I thought about Evan's whispered threat in the boardroom. About being fired for crimes I didn't commit. "I'm ready," I said. Frank was quiet for a moment. "Good. Because when you sent me those bank records yesterday, I forwarded copies to a secure cloud account. Standard practice for sensitive documents. The drive is gone, but we still have the data. Everything. And Leo? The account they used has been under federal investigation for 6 months. Frank suggested we start small. We need to test their reaction," he explained. I created an anonymous email account and sent one blue ash bank transfer to a financial blog that covered corporate fraud. Nothing major, just enough to get attention. The article went live the next morning. Anonymous tip reveals suspicious transfers at growing tech firm. They didn't name Carter and Rowe, but anyone familiar with the company would recognize the amounts. By noon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the article. Evan's freaking out. Emergency meeting called. All phones confiscated. I stared at the message. Someone inside the company was feeding me information. "Who is this?" I typed back. "Someone who wants to see him fall as much as you do. We share the same enemy." My heart raced. I wasn't alone in this fight. Someone else knew about Evan's crimes and was willing to help expose them. "Can we meet?" "Not yet. Too dangerous. But keep pushing. You're on the right track." I screenshot the conversation and sent it to Frank. Having an inside source changed everything. The mysterious texter finally agreed to meet. A woman in her 30s approached my table at the downtown library. Professional clothes, confident demeanor, carrying a thick folder. "I'm Priya Shah," she said, sitting across from me. "Investigative journalist with the Financial Tribune. I've been tracking your brother's company for over a year." She spread photos across the table. Evan meeting with strangers in expensive restaurants. Documents being exchanged in parking garages. "This is bigger than family drama, Leo. People could go to prison." The blue ash money isn't just hidden profits. It's being laundered through multiple countries before ending up in terrorist financing networks. My stomach dropped. Terrorist financing? Your brother might not know where the money goes after Blue Ash, but the people he's working with definitely do. She pointed to one photo. Recognize him? A tall man with gray hair shaking hands with Evan outside a hotel. That's Daniel Voss, Priya said. Very much alive, despite what the obituaries say. He faked his death to avoid prosecution. Evan told me Voss was dead. Either your brother is lying, or he's being lied to. Either way, he's in serious trouble. I couldn't wait any longer. I drove to Evan's house and found him washing his car in the driveway. When he saw me, his face darkened. What are you doing here? We need to talk about Daniel Voss. Evan stopped scrubbing and straightened up. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out one of Priya's photos. This is you meeting with him last month. The same Daniel Voss who's supposed to be dead. Evan laughed, but it sounded forced. That's not Voss, idiot. That's just a business associate who helps with international contracts. And you? You're nothing without me. Then why did you fire me? If I'm nothing, why was I such a threat? His expression turned cold. Because you couldn't mind your own business. You were always asking questions, poking around in files that didn't concern you. I never wanted you at Carter & Row. Dad pressured me to hire you. The words hit harder than expected. I gave everything to that company. And I gave you a job you didn't deserve. That night, my phone rang. Mom's contact photo filled the screen. Leo, honey, Evan told us what happened. How could you steal from your own brother? Frank introduced me to Theo Park, a cybersecurity expert who specialized in corporate investigations. We met at Theo's downtown office, surrounded by multiple computer screens. Your brother's company has decent external security, Theo explained, but their internal network is weak. If we can get inside, I can access their financial records. It took 3 hours of careful work. Theo navigated through firewalls while I watched. Finally, we were inside Carter & Row's private server. Jackpot, Theo whispered. The screen filled with contract files. Dozens of them, all with the same pattern. Fake invoices for services never provided. Phantom consulting fees. Equipment purchases that never happened. They're not just hiding money, I said. They're creating it out of thin air. Theo nodded, downloading files quickly. These contracts are generating millions in fake revenue. The Blue Ash transfers are the final step. Suddenly, the screen went black. Red text appeared, unauthorized access detected. Tracing location. Someone's in the network right now, Theo said, fingers flying across the keyboard. They're trying to trace us. He yanked cables and shut down monitors. We need to leave. Now. We grabbed the files and ran to the parking garage. Black SUVs were turning into the building's entrance. The black car appeared in my rearview mirror 3 blocks from my apartment. I made 4 random turns, and it followed every one. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I drove toward the police station. The car disappeared when I turned into the station parking lot. I sat there for 30 minutes before driving home through back streets. Priya called that evening. We need to meet. Public place, lots of witnesses. They're escalating. The next morning, we met at a busy shopping mall food court. Priya slid an envelope across the table. This is the only way to end him, she said. But once you open it, you're committed. Inside was a notarized legal document. An agreement between Evan and Daniel Voss, signed and witnessed. The terms were clear. Carter & Row would launder money through Blue Ash in exchange for a 15% commission. Where did you get this? Source inside Voss's organization. Priya leaned forward. Look at the date. The agreement was signed the same week Evan hired me 3 years ago. I wasn't brought in to help build the company. I was hired to be the fall guy. He planned this from the beginning, I said. Your brother needed someone to blame when authorities started investigating. The weight of betrayal settled on my chest like a stone. 3 years of my life, wasted. Every late night, every missed holiday, every time I defended Evan to worried friends who said he was using me. They were right. I thought about family dinners where Evan would pat my shoulder and tell our parents how proud he was of my work. How we made a great team. All lies. The agreement proved that I was never his brother in this business. I was his employee, his scapegoat, his insurance policy. When the FBI eventually came knocking, Evan would point at me and say I was the mastermind. What's our next move? I asked Priya. We need more witnesses. People inside Carter and Rowe who can testify about the fake contracts. She pulled out her phone. I've been trying to reach Marissa Grace for 2 days. She's not answering. A chill ran down my spine. When did you last hear from her? Tuesday morning. She said she wanted to meet and discuss cooperating with our investigation. Priya's face was grim. She was supposed to call back that afternoon. And she never called? No. And she hasn't been to work since Tuesday. I tried calling Marissa every hour. Straight to voicemail. Her social media accounts hadn't been updated in 3 days. Frank ran searches through police databases and hospital records. Nothing. It's like she vanished, Frank said. No arrests, no accidents, no check-ins anywhere. Priya and I drove to Marissa's apartment building. The doorman said she'd left Tuesday morning carrying a small suitcase. She mentioned visiting her sister in Portland. Did she seem upset or scared? Priya asked. Actually, yes. She kept looking over her shoulder. We checked with airlines and bus companies. No tickets purchased under Marissa's name. Her credit cards hadn't been used since Monday night. That evening, a package appeared on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a jewelry box containing a silver necklace I recognized immediately. Marissa always wore that necklace. It belonged to her grandmother. Underneath was a handwritten note, "Stop digging, or she won't be the only one who disappears." I called Priya immediately. They have her. We don't know that for sure. Then why send her necklace? Why threaten me unless they want to prove they can reach anyone I'm working with? Because they're getting desperate. We move faster. The next morning brought worse news. Frank called with an update on Marissa's disappearance. Hospital records show she was treated for anxiety attacks twice last month. Security footage from her building shows her leaving Tuesday with a man in a black suit. She didn't look willing. Can we identify the man? Working on it. But Leo, there's something else. Evan just announced a massive expansion deal. New offices in 3 cities, 50 new employees. I grabbed my laptop and found the press release. Carter and Rowe was expanding internationally, backed by significant investor funding. Evan's quote talked about record profits and sustainable growth. It was all built on blue ash money. Millions from fake contracts and money laundering, now being used to create a public image of success. He's doubling down, I told Priya. Instead of laying low, he's using dirty money to make himself look like a business genius. Which means he's confident we can't touch him. Either he's eliminated the evidence, or he's eliminated the witnesses. I thought about Marissa's necklace. About the man in the black suit. How long would it take you to write a comprehensive exposé? I asked. If I had all the evidence organized? 2 days. Then let's burn it all down. Theo had been working around the clock to crack Carter and Rowe's financial servers. He called me at 6 a.m. with excitement in his voice. I found the master files. Everything. The original Blue Ash agreement, wire transfer authorizations with Evan's digital signature, emails between him and Voss planning the whole operation. Can you prove they're authentic? Better than that. I can prove when they were created, who accessed them, and from which computers. This is a complete timeline of the conspiracy. We met at Frank's office to review everything. The evidence was overwhelming. Hundreds of documents showing Evan's involvement in money laundering, contract fraud, and tax evasion. But the most damning piece was an email from 2 weeks ago. Evan writing to someone identified only as DV, the family problem is handled. L is neutralized and won't be an issue moving forward. Family problem. That was me. This is enough to bring down the entire operation, Frank said. But we need to move carefully. I looked at my phone. Still no word from Marissa. I have 3 employees willing to talk, Priya said. Plus bank records from the Cayman Islands account. Then let's do it. Frank nodded. I'll contact the FBI. Priya's article went live on the Financial Tribune website at exactly 6 p.m. The headline read, "Local tech firm accused of international money laundering scheme." She'd named everything. Carter and Rowe. Evan specifically. The Blue Ash Project. Daniel Voss and his fake death. Within 2 hours, the story was trending on social media. My phone started ringing immediately. Reporters wanting comments. Former co-workers asking if it was true. Friends offering support. I ignored them all except one call. Evan. Meet me, he said when I answered. Tonight. The warehouse district on Maple Street. Come alone. Why would I do that? Because I have something you want back. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my mind racing. Something I wanted back could only mean one thing. Marissa. I called Frank immediately. He wants to meet. I think he has her. Don't go. It's obviously a trap. What if it's our only chance to save her? Leo, think logically. If he's willing to kidnap his own business partner, what do you think he'll do to the brother who destroyed his company? I have to try, I said. But I'm not going in blind. The warehouse district was empty except for a few parked cars. I found Evan standing beside a black SUV, arms crossed, looking like he hadn't slept in days. You came, he said. Wasn't sure you would. Where is she? Safe. For now. He gestured toward the SUV. Get in. We need to talk privately. I'm not getting in your car. Evan laughed bitterly. Still don't trust your big brother? He reached into his jacket, and I tensed. But he only pulled out an envelope. Settlement offer. $5 million. Tax-free, deposited in any account you choose. All you have to do is call your journalist friend and tell her the story was wrong. You think I can be bought? Everyone can be bought, Leo. It's just a matter of finding the right price. He held out the envelope. Walk away, and you'll never have to work again. Keep pushing, and you'll end up like Marissa. The recording device in my jacket was capturing everything. Where is she? Somewhere safe, as long as you cooperate. But my partners are getting impatient. Partners like Daniel Voss? Evan's expression darkened. You should never have gotten involved with things you don't understand. I looked at the envelope. $5 million to F. G after Evan's expansion announcement, crashed to zero in 3 hours. By noon, the bank had frozen all Carter and Rowe accounts. Employees were told to go home while the investigation continued. Frank called with updates. Federal prosecutors say they have enough evidence for conspiracy, money laundering, tax fraud, and racketeering charges. Your brother's looking at 20 to 30 years. What about Marissa? Still working on that. The FBI has a task force searching for her. That evening, someone pounded on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole and saw Evan, disheveled and wild-eyed. "Open the door, Leo." I called 911 first, then opened the door with the chain attached. "You destroyed everything," he screamed. 20 years of work. Hundreds of jobs. You destroyed it when you decided to launder money for terrorists. You think you've won? He pressed his face against the gap. You have no idea what's coming. Voss doesn't forgive and forget. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Evan stepped back from the door. "This isn't over," he said before disappearing down the hallway. Theo called me the next morning with the final piece of evidence. I cracked Voss's personal server. "You're not going to believe what I found." We met at Frank's office, where Theo connected his laptop to the projector. Bank records filled the screen showing money flowing from Carter and Rowe through 7 different countries before ending up in accounts linked to known terrorist organizations. "It's not just money laundering," Theo explained. "They're funding weapons purchases, training camps, and operational planning. Your brother's company was a front for international terrorism financing." Frank was taking notes furiously. "This changes everything. Federal prosecutors will probably add terrorism charges." "There's more," Theo said, clicking to another screen. Email chains between Voss and his contacts planning to expand the operation. I stared at the evidence in horror. Evan hadn't just stolen money. He'd helped fund violence against innocent people around the world. My phone rang. FBI agent Patricia Wells. "Mr. Thompson, we need you to come in immediately." "Did you find Marissa?" "Just come in. And bring your lawyer." At the FBI office, Agent Wells led us into an interrogation room. On the table was a warrant with my name on it. "Leo Thompson, you're under investigation for conspiracy to commit money laundering and providing material support to terrorist organizations." The handcuffs felt surreal around my wrists. As Agent Wells led me through the FBI building, I caught sight of Priya in the hallway. "Trust me," she whispered as we passed. "This is part of the plan." Part of the plan? I was being arrested for crimes my brother committed, and this was part of some plan? The holding cell was small and cold. Frank arrived 2 hours later with paperwork. "It's all fake," he explained. "Theo found evidence that someone used your credentials to authorize those transfers. We think Evan cloned your access cards." "But why arrest me if you know it's fake?" "Because now you can testify under immunity. The FBI wants your cooperation to build an airtight case against Evan and Voss." It made sense. As long as I was a suspect, anything I said could be used against me. But as a cooperating witness with immunity, I could tell them everything. "What about Marissa?" "Still missing. But they found the warehouse where Evan was holding her. Signs of a struggle, but no body. She might have escaped." The next morning, Agent Wells brought me to a conference room full of federal prosecutors and FBI agents. I talked for 6 hours, telling them about every suspicious meeting, every weird conversation, every time Evan had acted strangely. "Your testimony is crucial," the lead prosecutor said. "But we need witnesses who can corroborate the conspiracy." Evan just fired his entire legal team and announced he's representing himself in court. The trial began on a cold Monday morning in November. Media packed the courthouse as federal prosecutors laid out their case against Evan and Daniel Voss. I sat in the witness section, watching my brother at the defense table. He'd lost weight and looked exhausted, but his eyes still held that arrogant confidence. The prosecution's opening statement was devastating. Bank records, email chains, recorded phone calls. They painted a picture of systematic conspiracy to launder money for terrorist organizations. When it was Evan's turn to speak, he stood up confidently. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my brother Leo Thompson is a bitter, jealous man who never forgave me for being more successful. He pointed directly at me. He created this entire scheme to destroy my reputation. For 3 days, Evan tried to paint me as the mastermind. He claimed I had access to all financial systems. That I forged his signatures. That I was working with Daniel Voss to frame him. Some of it was convincing. I did have computer access. To someone who didn't know the full story, it might seem plausible. Then Frank and Priya unleashed their evidence. Digital forensics proving my credentials were cloned. Video surveillance showing me nowhere near the office during key transactions. But the biggest surprise came on Friday afternoon. The courtroom doors opened, and Marissa Grace walked in. Marissa looked pale and shaky, but she was alive. The entire courtroom buzzed as she made her way to the witness stand. "Ms. Grace," the prosecutor began, "can you tell us about your relationship with the defendant? Evan Thompson and I were business partners and co-founders of Carter & Rowe. Were you aware of the Blue Ash money laundering operation?" Marissa glanced at Evan, who was staring at her with undisguised fury. "At first, no. Evan told me the overseas transfers were legitimate consulting fees." "When did you discover the truth?" "6 months ago, I accidentally opened an email meant for Evan. It contained instructions from Daniel Voss about increasing transfer amounts." The prosecutor displayed the email on screens around the courtroom. Clear evidence of Voss giving Evan orders about money laundering operations. "What did you do with this information?" "I confronted Evan. He begged me not to report it, said he was trapped. He promised he would shut down Blue Ash. But he didn't?" "No. Instead, the transfers increased. When I threatened to go to authorities, Evan said I was in too deep to walk away." Marissa's testimony was devastating. She described how Evan had gradually drawn her into the conspiracy. "Ms. Grace, were you kidnapped earlier this year?" "Yes. When I agreed to cooperate with Leo's investigation, Evan had 2 men grab me outside my apartment. They held me in a warehouse for 5 days before I escaped." Evan jumped up. "She's lying. This is all coordinated perjury." Evan's outburst damaged his credibility with the jury. But he wasn't finished trying to defend himself. During cross-examination, he attempted to prove Marissa was lying about being kidnapped. "Isn't it true, Ms. Grace, that you willingly participated in the Blue Ash operation from the beginning?" "No, that's not true." "Didn't you sign authorization forms for overseas transfers?" "Yes, but you told me they were for legitimate business purposes." Evan produced a stack of documents. "These are emails between you and offshore banking contacts. Emails you sent, not me." Marissa looked confused. "I never sent those emails." "That's your email address. Your login credentials." The prosecutor objected, but Evan was allowed to continue. For a moment, it seemed like he might have found reasonable doubt. Then Marissa smiled slightly. "Mr. Thompson, are you familiar with digital forensics?" Evan paused. "What? Those emails you're showing the jury? They have metadata that proves when and where they were created." She looked directly at the jury. "Those emails were composed on Evan's laptop, using software that spoofs email addresses. The timestamps show they were created last week, not 6 months ago." The courtroom erupted. Evan had just presented forged evidence in federal court. The prosecutor was already on his feet. "Your Honor, we'd like to add charges of tampering with evidence and perjury." Evan's face went white. I didn't." But it was too late. His own evidence proved he was willing to forge documents and lie under oath. The final day of testimony belonged to Theo Park. He connected his laptop to the courtroom's projection system and walked the jury through the digital evidence. "Every computer transaction leaves a trail," he explained. "Like fingerprints, but more detailed. The screen showed a timeline of every Blue Ash transfer, cross-referenced with login records, IP addresses, and user activity. The defendant's laptop was used to authorize every single money laundering transaction. His personal email account contains correspondence with Daniel Voss dating back 4 years. But the most damning evidence was a video file Theo had recovered from Voss's personal server. This was recorded by Mr. Voss as insurance, in case Mr. Thompson ever tried to betray him. The video showed Evan and Voss in what looked like a hotel room, discussing their money laundering operation in explicit detail. "We can move 50 million through Carter and Rowe in the next quarter," Evan was saying. "My brother's computer skills are making this operation much more efficient." On the video, Voss handed Evan a briefcase full of cash. "You're cut for the last round of transfers." "And Evan? Thank you for eliminating the family problem." The courtroom was silent as the video ended. Even Evan seemed stunned that such evidence existed. The prosecution rested their case. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Evan was sentenced to 42 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. As the bailiff led him away, he leaned close to me one last time. "Voss is still out there," he whispered. 6 months later, I sat in my new office overlooking downtown. The sign on my door read Thompson Security Consulting, Digital Forensics and Corporate Investigation. Carter and Rowe had collapsed completely, but the employees found new jobs quickly. Most were grateful to learn they'd been working for a legitimate company, not a terrorist front. Marissa started her own firm and landed 3 major contracts within 2 months. We had lunch occasionally, but the trauma kept us from becoming close friends. Priya won a journalism award for her exposé of the Blue Ash Network. Her investigation led to arrests of 12 other money launderers and seizure of over $200 million in terrorist funds. Frank opened his own practice specializing in corporate fraud cases. Business was booming. I'd testified in 4 more federal trials, helping prosecutors convict other members of Voss's network. The FBI said I had a talent for understanding financial crimes. But Daniel Voss himself remained free. He disappeared after Evan's conviction, probably using another fake identity. That's why I was surprised when my secretary buzzed the intercom. "Mr. Thompson? There's an envelope here for you. No return address." Inside was a single photograph. Daniel Voss sitting at a sidewalk cafe, reading a newspaper. In the background, clearly visible, was my office building. On the back, someone had written, "Some games never end." I walked to my window and looked down at the street below. Any one of those people could be Voss. My phone rang. Frank's number. "Leo, we need to talk. The FBI thinks Voss is planning something big, and your name came up. The war with my brother was over. But apparently, the war with his partners was just beginning."